Hey guys, how are you all doing today? So I've seen a lot of questions lately in the community about Pierce damage, especially with Blue Demon Meliodas and Blue Lilia being somewhere, hopefully coming in the future. We saw like some leaks for a 100 days banner with Blue Demon Meliodas. That's like in 2 weeks. So with that on the horizon, I was thinking I'd just look into doing some Pierce damage calculations. I personally use Howzer a lot in PvP, in geared PvP, with full Pierce set on it, and I did some calculations before on him, but then I thought to myself there are other units that utilize Pierce as well, and the ones I did before weren't super clear, so I just decided to run through it again, get some numbers down on Hauser, get some numbers on Green Elizabeth and Hawk, as well as Green Gustav. So we're going to be showcasing Hauser and Elizabeth and Hawk skills, seeing what type of impact having attack rolls versus Pierce rolls does, based on their different skills. They have their skill that has the extra added 3 times Pierce multiplier versus their skills that don't have that, seeing what is better for those attack or Pierce at the different levels. And then we're also going to be testing out their ultimates just to see how Pierce rolls bring down the ultimate. Then we'll also have a little section for Gustav, seeing how his damage goes against Red Demon and how his damage goes against the guild boss. So first, we're just going to start off by showing the gear that we'll be utilizing for this. Okay, so let's just jump into the gear. Here is the Pierce set that we run normally on Hauser. We have a bracer that has 25.4% pierce rate on it, and a ring that has 24.5% pierce rate. Not perfect rolls, but anvils ain't cheap, and neither are gems, so just kept those rolls for now. We'll probably try to get them higher later. Then I believe the person who has our other gear, right, is Demon Meliodas. We actually just swapped out the bracer and ring for the other set, as opposed to switching gear entirely, because I wanted as little variables as possible. So this bracer right here is the attack bracer I'll refer to. It has decent attack rolls, 13%. Once again, not perfect, but we'll take that for now. The ring also 13% decent attack roll. So we would just swap out that with the Pierce bracer and the Pierce ring in order to get more accurate numbers. So jumping into the data here, I'll be attaching the spreadsheet putting the link to the spreadsheet in the description for this video. Our first test that we ran was with Hauser. We had both the attack bracer and the attack ring on, no pierce rolls, and the average, all of these averages are going to be, or all of these results are going to be in thousands. I sort of rounded up, sometimes rounded down, depends on what the number was exactly. So, you can give or take a little like 100 damage on each of these. But anyway, these are in the thousands, and then we averaged them as well at the bottom. So, on average, Rising Storm, which is Hauser's Pierce attack, was doing 24,000 at level 1. It was doing 31,000 at level 2, 44,000 at level 3. His Super Cyclone was doing 19,000 at level 1, 27,000 at level 2, and 44-ish thousand at level 3. Now this is pretty surprising because I was not expecting the Super Cyclone average to be close to the Rising Storm, even on the regular set, but it was pretty high up there. Then his ultimates. Now Hauser has a pretty high crit chance, so as you can see, we got more crits on his ultimate than we didn't. So I just kept track of both for him. So 70,000, 71,000 was the average damage that we got for his ultimate move without crits, and about 101,000 with crits. That's pretty decent for an AoE ultimate. In PvP, that's almost somebody's entire health bar, assuming they're running like an attack defense set. Then the following test we did was we actually swapped out the attack bracer and we put in a Pierce Rolls bracer. So, but we kept the attack ring on as well. This one was sort of middle of the pack as far as the 3 sets go. Rising Storm, already doing much better than the 24,000 above. It was doing around 28 to 29,000 at level 1. It was doing about 35,000 at level 2, 47,000 at level 3. Now this is a bit less of a difference, as you can see, than it was for level 1 and 2, and that's because level 3 skills just have a higher multiplier, and so they rely more on the unit's attack stat. But since this is still a piercing move, it was heavily influenced by that increased pierce rate, so that it made up for the lower attack. Super Cyclone at level 1, it actually beat out the pure attack stat. Even though this is not a piercing move, at level 1 and level 2, this beat out the attack stat. And at level 3, it was lower than the attack stat. It was lower than the damage that we got for the attack stat. And the ultimate, as you can expect, had a little bit of a drop off, 66,000 without crit, 95,000 with crit. Still some decent damage, could take out some good amounts of health anyway. Then the following test we performed for Howzer was with the full out pierce roll, 85% pierce rate, 8,000 attack. Rising Storm completely blew the pure attack out of the water. Almost 32,000. Now, if you'll notice, the average for the level 1 on the pierce set was greater than the average for the level 2 on the attack set. Almost 32,000 attack average. Then level 2 brings it up to 37,000. Level 3 almost hits 50,000. And it beats out all of this. It beats out the attack set as well. And this was the most surprising thing for me. Super Cyclone level 1 actually hit for 20,000 damage on average. Then for level 2 and level 3, it came in last place at 26,000 and 39,000 respectively. But still pretty decent damage. 39,000 versus 43,000. Not awful. So the pure set wins without a doubt for low level skills, or for low multiplier skills, and throughout across the board for Rising Storm. For the ultimate, it did suffer a pretty hefty drop off from 71,000 down to 61,000 without crit, and from 101,000 nearly to 86,000 with crit. So there was a bit of a drop off there, and once again you can see these are the two pieces that were used: full pierce bracer and full pierce ring. So that sums up the results for Howzer. If you want to be hitting those high piercing moves, you're going to want to use the pierce set. For PvP, you're more likely than not going to use these skills right here than you are going to get a level 3 Super Cyclone, for example, or even your ultimate. You know, you'll get to ultimate maybe once with Howzer during a match, twice if you get lucky or some crazy card draw, whatever. You're running a gimmicky strategy, you might ult twice, right? Even ulting once is not guaranteed, but what you do start off with is this skill right here and that skill right there. And what this is showing is that the pierce rate set does increase the damage for those skills. Of course, take all of this with a grain of salt. This was my test in my gear. I do implore everyone to do their own testing as well. But what this is showing is that Howzer has a pretty hefty advantage with the pierce set and doesn't lose out too much by switching over. The next character we're going to be looking at is Green Elizabeth and Hawk. So for Green Elizabeth and Hawk, we sort of kept out the middleman set, and we just went for the pure pierce rate and the pure attack set. So with the attack set, she had 9.1 thousand attack, 39% pierce rate. Did about 17,000 on her Super Pork level 1. Did 26,000 on level 3. I had taken notes here for level 2, and then I realized level 1 and level 2 have the same exact multiplier. This really confused me when I saw that it was lower damage in the level 1. Then I remembered they have the same multiplier. Then for her Super Hawk, which is the one where he flies around, hits everyone with the Pierce multiplier, 19,000 compared to 27,000 up here, 23,000, 24 compared to 30,000 up here, and then 32,000 compared to 38,000. Now with the ultimate, obviously, the pure attack stat won by a landslide. She has a 10-50% attack multiplier in her ultimate. That's a given. But with Green Ollie Hawk, you're most likely going to be using her for farming, and you're very rarely ever going to get an ultimate. And even if you do, this is plenty damage to one-shot basically any like boss battle or chapter mission boss you're fighting. So, or this right here, that's still plenty of attack. 70,000 damage will get you very far. So I think with Green Elizabeth and Hawk, it can't even be overstated I mean, her level 1 skill here just flat out beats out this one, and this one for her level 3 skill, for her regular skill, is not that far behind from the straight up attack set. So I think with Green Elizabeth and Hawk, it's a no brainer. Go for the Pierce rolls. I unfortunately only have one Pierce set, and I keep it on Howzer. But if I do make a second Pierce set at some point in the future, I think Green Elizabeth and Hawk might be getting that for my farming runs. So the last set we're going to be going over, the last character is going to be Gustav. Now Gustav has a passive that decreases the enemy's resistance by Gustav's pierce rate at the start of battle. So we're going to be comparing Gustav rocking no pierce rolls at 36% pierce rate versus rocking all pierce rolls at 86% pierce rate versus the Red Demon and the Guild Boss. For Red Demon, we partnered him up with Red Elizabeth and Hawk, since that's what most people are likely going to be running. I didn't want to do Slater because I believe Slater sort of is seen less and less nowadays as people build out their Lizhawks. But also, Slater does a lot of crits, and crits have a lot of variability behind their damage, and we just don't want to include that into the data sets. It might mess things up, as you'll see with Jericho's ult afterwards. So we didn't do as many runs up there because we're just not that lucky with Red Demon invites. I sat for 20 minutes waiting for an invite, went away from my phone for 1 minute, came back to an expired one. So we just ran some of our own with some of our friends to get these damage numbers. And we're looking at an average of 39,000 versus 37,000 for Pierce versus no Pierce on Gustav. Elizabeth and Hawk, as well as Elizabeth and Hawk was running just a regular attack set, so she had no extra Pierce rolls or anything. And then for her second skill, looking at about 24.5 thousand versus 23,000. Not much of a difference. It doesn't seem like Gustav's pass is doing much for the Red Demon. This might very well be simply because the Red Demon has low resistance, and so Gustav lowering his resistance isn't going to make it some negative value that's going to exponentiate your damage, right? So that's my theory on this. I'm not 100% sure. It could very well have something to do with Red Elizabeth and Hawk. I have not looked at her stats, so couldn't be sure on that one. But the following case that we performed was for the guild boss with Jericho. Jericho had about 10.2 thousand attack. She's running a full crit damage gear with attack subsets. And looking at the non-Pierce versus the Pierce, we're seeing 5.8 thousand versus 8.9 thousand on her bleed-in attack, then 7.3 thousand versus 10.3 thousand on her weak point attack. And I made sure that whenever I did the weak point attack, there was no weak point multiplier activated, and no crits were involved in these sets. And I don't believe there were any crits either on these, since it was usually my second skill move, then she still has a pretty low crit chance at that point. And of course, the ultimate is what most people care about for Guild Boss, so I had to compare that too. But you know, unless I spent hours farming Guild Boss, I wouldn't be able to get that many significant runs for it. For each of these hits, I had level 1 Hellbrim skill with no freeze on. And so we're looking at 56,000 with the no pierce on Gustav versus 64,000 with pierce on the one ultimate that we're able to get without crits. Normally I get more of these no crits than I get the crits, but I wasn't complaining. Then we get an average of 250,000 versus 228,000 for the Pierce versus the non-Pierce. Now, what's interesting about this is that we started off with an extremely high roll, and then it sort of normalized afterwards. So take this number with a very, very large grain of salt. It would require some further testing, but from what these skills are showing, at the very least, there most definitely is a more significant difference on the guild boss, likely because he has a higher resistance than the red demon has. So Gustav, Pierce Rate, Guild Boss, very worth it. I think the overall picture that this is shaping here is that you want to have at least one Pierce Rate set, you know, for farming, or if you're going to throw it on your Gustav when you're trying to do a Guild Boss run. And in the Guild Boss, every little bit of damage counts. And so even if the difference isn't some 3,000 between level 1 skills and it's only 1,000, you know, that 1,000 can be the difference between you being number 4 in your guild and number 3 and getting to brag on the guild Discord about it. So I personally think it's worth it. But of course, this is for you guys to decide. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you want to run some type of set with Howzer where he just ultimates and wipes out an entire team, then you know attack set's going to be your best bet for that. Otherwise, you're probably going to want to do the peer set. So I really hope you guys were able to learn something from this. I had a lot of fun running through these numbers. I enjoyed data and calculations a little more than I wish I did. So if you guys have any other suggestions for like analyses you want to see, things you'd like for me to calculate and do more videos on, I'm totally open to those. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, perhaps subscribe for more, leave a comment knowing you saw it with any questions, all of that jazz. And once again, have a great day, guys.